Aquaba, beautiful souls, to Espresso Talk Today, the Black Empowerment Podcast where we sip on insightful conversations and empower our community. Hujambo, I'm your host, Amma Robin, and today I'm joined by my amazing coffee-sipping colleague, Mel.
Hello, everyone. We're diving deep into some important territory today, so grab your favorite brew and settle in.
Absolutely, Mel. But before we jump into today's discussion, let's revisit what we talked about in the last episode. In that episode, we introduced a discussion about how racism is making us sick. That was an amazing discussion which led to the Everyday Discrimination Scale, or the EDDS.
That's right, Amma Robin. The EDDS is a tool designed by the brilliant Dr. David R. Williams to measure the frequency and impact of everyday experiences of discrimination and microaggressions in our lives. Dr. Williams developed the EDDS to shed light on those often subtle everyday moments that many people of color face. These experiences can take a toll on our mental and physical health, and it's critical to recognize and address them.
Absolutely. The Everyday Discrimination Scale helps us to understand the cumulative impact of these daily encounters with discrimination. Last time, in the last episode, we actually took the test ourselves, right here with our audience. Hope you were in it. We hope you took it along with us, and we had some interesting results. Today, we're taking it one step further.
That's right. In this episode, we're delving into part 2 of the Everyday Discrimination Scale, which focuses on major experiences of discrimination. You might wonder why we need a part 2. Well, while part 1 helps us measure the subtle everyday stuff, part 2 delves into more overt or major forms of discrimination, the kind that have profound and long-lasting effects on people of color, particularly Black people.
These are major experiences that might include, serious acts of racism, sexism, ageism, or discrimination based on other factors. We're going to focus really on racism, although those other things may come in too. We get intersectional here sometimes. They can happen in various settings, like the workplace, housing, or education. Y'all know that I see racism everywhere, and that's because it is everywhere. Even though it's everywhere, we often don't stop to see or acknowledge it. What do? We just accept it, and we keep on keeping on. That's what we Black people do. We keep on keeping on because we have to. That's how we've survived in America and in other white supremacist spaces. But it still takes a toll.
But Dr. Williams reminds us that we need to stop and acknowledge experiences of racism. He developed part 2 of the Everyday Discrimination Scale to provide a more comprehensive understanding of the range of discrimination experiences we go through on a regular basis. It helps us connect the dots between the everyday and the major events that shape our lives.
In today's episode, just like last week, we'll be sharing stories, research, and insights about these major experiences of discrimination. We'll explore how they impact our lives, our communities, and what we can do to stand strong in the face of this adversity. We believe in empowerment here, so we always return to that.
It's going to be an eye-opening conversation, so don't miss it. Let's raise awareness, share knowledge, and support each other through these discussions. We will also do this scale again today, but this time we will do the major experiences of discrimination part of the scale. We hope that you will do it right along with us, but remember, these questions can raise traumatic experiences that are painful. If you start to feel overwhelmed or stressed or other trauma symptoms, then take a break. Take care of yourself, breathe, and come back when you're ready. We know that this is serious and difficult. We're right here with you. Remember, Espresso Talk Today is a community, and you never need to be alone here.
Wow, asante sana for that reminder, Mel. Thank you so much for reminding us. It's so important to acknowledge our experiences and our feelings. And we appreciate you, our dear audience, for being in the building today. Now, grab your espresso and close the door behind you. It's about to get very real and very deep.
We're going to have a real talk, y'all. A real talk, y'all. Hold on.
Aquaba, welcome back, brave souls. We are here and returning to have our discussion now about our real talk, now about how racism is making us sick. We're continuing off of last week's discussion. And remember, last time we heard from the good doctor himself. We heard from Dr. David R. Williams himself. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to start off with part of his TED Talk. It's a little bit longer excerpt. We felt it was important to play the whole thing. So we're going to do that right now. And then we're going to come in and talk about it. Do you remember that
I
talk?
remember that, and I love the title, How Racism is Making Us Sick.
Yeah, I mean, that really caught my attention. I'm so glad that you pointed that out. And when I heard this, I'm totally on board, totally saw it. But let's hear from Dr. Williams now, and we'll be right back.
An article in the Yale Alumni Magazine told the story of Clyde Murphy, a black man who was a member of the class of 1970. Clyde was a success story. After Yale and a law degree from Columbia, Clyde spent the next 30 years as one of America's top civil rights lawyers. He was also a great husband and father. But despite his success, personally and professionally, Clyde's story had a sad ending. In 2010, at the age of 62, Clyde died from a blood clot in his lung. Clyde's experience was not unique. Many of his black classmates from Yale also died young. In fact, the magazine article indicated that 41 years after graduation from Yale, the black members of the class of 1970 had a death rate that was 3 times higher than that of the average class member. It's stunning.
Wow, Mel, what do you think?
I think racism is making us sick. And with that particular gentleman, I mean, he was involved in civil rights and the movement and that type of thing. And so it's not uncommon for racism to have really been one of the factors in causing his untimely death.
You know, I totally agree, and I liked that Dr. Williams opened up with this story about Clyde Murphy because it really personalized it. This was a real person, a real man. He achieved the dream, what people have been trying to achieve in America, what they say that we should do, and yeah, and it affected his health to the point where he died at such an early age, and he wasn't an anomaly. You look back at his class, 3 black people were dying at 3 times the rate of their white counterparts. That's outrageous.
It's unbelievable, but it's not surprising.
No, all right.
In my experience, I've had friends who have died at an early age from all kinds of issues and problems who were involved in the civil rights movement, who were involved in various kinds of activities that involved and promoted black people in the community and that type of thing. And they died at an early age, and you had no clue that it was racism until I listened to Dr. Williams, and I was just shocked. I'm still shocked.
I mean, do you think that it's somehow tied to working in civil rights or working for black empowerment?
I think it's tied to um, racism, and racism has a lot of forms. And working in black empowerment, maybe you have a heightened sense of racism than normally you would have. But yeah, I think it's tied to that.
You do? Okay. Well, have to ask that question because we asked the hard questions here. Are you saying that, okay, I'll back up first. I read that the highest rate of cancer among medical doctors is for doctors who are radiologists. Of course, they're doing x-rays and all that stuff all day long, so they're exposed to that. And I guess maybe they have to wonder, should I go into that, ask themselves, should I go into that field? Are you saying that maybe this we should not go into certain fields that involve civil rights because we'll be at a heightened kind of exposure to stress?
No, I think it's just the opposite. I think that being born black, being born a person of color, you have these issues and you're going to deal with them. And one way to deal with them, is to be involved in the movement and to be involved in issues that affect black people.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think with Clyde, because I've seen this actually in people working in other black people working in other fields too, judges, actors, just this week, and sometimes in some of my family members too. They died swiftly and suddenly and unexpectedly, and certainly at the rate well below the average mortality rate.
Yeah, and sometimes I think it's the high achievers, the ones who are really trying to, to make over to break that wall, to break through, and to show what we have and what we can do. That happens to. I had a family member who started a taxi company, and he died of a heart attack at an early age.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So we do see how, you know, uh, racism is making us sick, and even to the point of early death. Well, Dr. Williams had more to say about this, and I have another snippet. Would you like to hear that now?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. All right. I mean, y'all are not going to be prepared for this. Okay, you're just not. So, but I'm going to play it anyway because we get real here. Listen in.
What is even a bigger story is that every 7 minutes, a black person dies prematurely in the United States. That is, over 200 black people die every single day who would not die if the health of blacks and whites were equal.
What do you think?
I think he's right, and I think those statistics, prove the point. As I said, I had a family member who died at the age of 57. He ran a taxi company, the only taxi company for black people in that town, and he died of a heart issue.
Wow. Every 7 seconds, 200 people a day. I mean, I can see why American Public Health is saying that racism is a public health crisis. Killing 200 people a day, that's unbelievable. And that's something that I don't know if other medical doctors know about this when their black patients come to them. And I wonder if they take this seriously and think that, wow, this is someone who is at a heightened risk for early mortality or for some other kind of chronic illness.
Well, I definitely think that black doctors do. Whether or not this is taught in medical school or with black doctors, having lived, as a black person, they know this.
Okay. Okay, I do hope so. I really do. And but all doctors should know this because as I was reading, only 4% of doctors are black. So, our the odds of us getting a white doctor or a non-black doctor are really, really high. So we have to do stuff that can help us to help and insist to our doctors that they take our health seriously. And so we already know that structurally, black health and white health are not treated the same. There's no expectations are not the same.
I think you're right, and I think the key word is insist. We have to insist that they take our symptoms, our health seriously. We can't let them off the hook with saying, "Oh, you'll be better. Take an aspirin, you'll be fine."
Yeah, but I also think too. Yeah, I said insist, and I completely, support that. I agree with that. That was the right word. But we can't even convince them that racism, in some ways, you know, exists, and that it is having an effect on Black health, on Black mortality, and this is an everyday thing. How can we get them to believe that racism is affecting our health? They're not even believing that racism fully exists.
Well, I don't think we can get them to believe that racism is affecting our health. I think we can get them to believe that our symptoms are real and not fake.
Okay, but maybe rather than getting the doctors to understand it too, maybe the first step is getting us to see that racism is affecting us on a daily basis. And I think that's what Dr. Williams was getting at too, so that you can even quantify it, how racism is affecting our health. And I think that's why he came up with the scale.
I think that's true. I agree with that.
So maybe we should just go and start looking at the scale right now.
Let's do that.
Okay, so, well, audience, I hope you're going to do this with us too. We're going to take a short breather break here. We're going to come back and get right to the everyday discrimination scale, the major experiences of discrimination section. Grab a pen. We have 9 questions, and we're going to get right to it. See you in a minute. Aquaba community, and thank you for staying with us. This is not easy stuff, but it's important, and we're glad that you're here. So we are going to, as I said, go through the everyday discrimination scale. I just want to ask Mel to explain it one more time, so then you know what you're getting into and where we're going with this. So Mel, would you explain the everyday discrimination scale again?
Very happy to do that. The Everyday Discrimination Scale is a tool designed by Dr. Williams, Dr. David R. Williams, to measure the frequency and impact of everyday experiences of discrimination and microaggressions in our lives. He developed it to shed light on those often subtle, everyday moments that many people of color face. Everyday moments that people of color face.
Yeah, and it's also then it talked about the cumulative effect of all of this, right?
Absolutely, because the cumulative effect is what's making us sick.
Yes, that's right. I remember, yeah, talking about that about racial battle fatigue too. The how things build up. We know about that build up because once it reaches a certain level, something happens. Anyway, let's get to the scale right now. We have 9 questions. I'm going to present the first 5, and Mel will present the next 4. Okay, and we're gonna go through each question and discuss it a little bit, and see where it goes. Now I will say this: a lot of these questions are focused on jobs, on employment, and I understand that a lot of our audience is young, and so maybe you haven't been out in the workforce yet, or you're just taking your first step out there. This can also apply to a school situation, or it can apply to, yeah, just other situations, applying for, even a part-time job if you do that. But we'll go through each question and we'll discuss it as it comes along. Question 1. Okay. At any time in your life, have you ever been unfairly fired? Okay, so that's one of those questions that people who haven't had a full-time job or haven't had a job might not ever have been fired. Okay, but have you ever been unfairly suspended from school? Unfairly had your application to college unfairly rejected? So, you have to apply to your situation. Okay, so at any time in your life, have you been unfairly fired or had your application rejected? Now, I'm going to answer that question first. I have not been fired. I've had jobs. I have not been fired unfairly or fairly or otherwise, but I have had my applications to schools, and I have applied for many, many, many jobs. I remember when I was in law school, we were all applying for internships and jobs in law school. All of us all the students were. And, the black students, most of us never got anything. Maybe 1 or 2 did. But our white counterparts, the white students in the class, they were choosing from among the different offers and acceptances they got for jobs. So I would say, I would answer yes, that has happened to me. And this wasn't recent, but it has happened to me, and it's been something I really remember. What about you, Mel?
Well, I think it's happened to a lot of people in our audience. It hasn't personally happened to me, but unfairly fired is a very specific thing. I think maybe unfairly denied an opportunity, would be more consistent with what happens to people. And when you talk about unfairly fired, now, because of the law, recognizing that racism can be a part of that, there's a thing called wrongful termination. That if you unfairly fire somebody, you can be liable for damages. But I think that we should consider this an unfairly uh, opportunity denied. And I think that was the reason for affirmative action. Unfortunately, in education, affirmative action, because of the Supreme Court, is no longer viable. But affirmative action brought those opportunities or made them open and available to us when they were not before.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's a very, very good point about affirmative action. And I think that takes us directly to number two, which I think I may have answered instead of number one. Okay, here we go. For unfair reasons, have you ever not been hired for a job? And I'd say absolutely yes. And I think it was all of us, like I said, law students applying for jobs. And oh, and I mean, I've applied for a lot of jobs since then too. And I've seen other people a lot less qualified than myself being hired, instead of me. And I've also had people discuss, my hair because I wear locks. And they say that, you shouldn't apply for a job while you're wearing your natural hair. Has this happened to you, Mel?
It hasn't really happened to me, but I think being a person of color, that some of the opportunities are just not available, so you don't apply.
Oh,
So
wow.
in a sense, it's kind of like you're not there because you didn't put yourself there because there's no opportunity there. So it's like you keep yourself out of that area of not being hired for a job because you don't even apply because it's not going to happen.
Wow, that's how invidious and how insidious racism is, that it keeps you from even applying. Wow. But it does. I can see that too, because people say there's just no point. And in some ways, they're not wrong. Let's go to number three. Have you ever been unfairly denied a promotion? I will have to say no to that one. But I see it all around me. But for me, that hasn't happened to me. And do you know anything about that, Mel?
A little bit about that. The term unfairly denied a promotion, that means there was a promotion, I applied for it, and I didn't get it. But I think the more subtle thing is a promotion is not even available to apply for. Then you didn't get the promotion you did apply for. So I think that's kind of like a subtle, way that racism plays this game. The promotion is just not available to you, so you don't apply for it, and you don't even sometimes even know it exists.
Oh, oh, wow. That's right. Oh, okay. That is boy. Racism just appears in so many different ways. Okay, so we'll go with number four. Have you ever been unfairly stopped, searched, questioned, physically threatened, or abused by the police? I will say I personally have not had that happen to me physically. I've been followed by the police many times, followed by the police. I've seen it happen on TV, and oh wow, and I don't mean to make this sound to put this off on me, but I have, in some ways, it felt like it was happening to me when I've been watching it, when I've been seeing it, the videos, and I just can't even watch the videos anymore because it feels like it's happening to me or to someone I know. So I'm gonna have to answer yes and no. Okay, Mel.
Well, yeah, I don't. I was stopped by the police. It's really interesting because I was with a friend, a guy. And as I was stopped by the police, the lights flashing behind you and all of that, he gave me instructions. He says, put your hands on the wheel. Do not, look at the policeman. If he asks you for your vehicle registration, let him know it is in the pocket of my car. I am reaching now for. So I got instructions on how to handle that, and it turned out well. It was a mistake or something. Or my light was out. I can't remember what the issue was, but there was no confrontation with the police. But I got good instruction from my friend who was in the seat next to me, and so I have been stopped by the police.
How old were you at that time?
Actually, I was in my 40s.
Oh, okay. Wow. All right. Okay, we're moving on. I think you're taking over the questions now.
Okay, number 5.
Number 6.
Okay.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's number 5. Wait, I'm still on the question.
Yeah.
It's still me. Okay, good. I have one more question for you here. Have you ever been unfairly discouraged by a teacher or advisor from continuing your education? Absolutely. Absolutely, definitely, yes. And yeah, by a guidance counselor at school, at my high school. She was saying that I shouldn't apply to go to certain colleges because I wasn't ready for that. And she even called my parents and said, Robin wants to apply to certain colleges and certain universities, but if she even gets in, she's not ready for that kind of environment. Well, I applied, I got in, and I was ready for it. Okay, so that has happened to me, but I would have discouraged many other people from even applying. I mean, wow, educator doing that, it's unbelievable. Mel.
Actually, I have had experience with this. It happened to me in college. I was at a college where this is, the affirmative action issue. There were only 100 black students admitted to this college, and there were 30,000 white students. So I was taking an English course, and I had to write a paper, and I wrote the paper, and the teacher graded the paper, the professor, and returned everybody's paper back but mine. And he called me to his office. And so I wondered, what he was calling me to his office for. And I went into his office, and he said, Mel, he says, you've written this paper, he says, and it's an excellent paper, he said, and your writing is excellent, but it will never, never come out during your lifetime. And I was deflated by that, and I didn't understand what he was saying. But now I understand that it's racism. He was trying to keep me from going further, and that was a consideration when I applied to law school, whether or not my writing would be acceptable, whether or not my writing will get me through law school. And that happened, say, about maybe 8 years before I even applied to law school. So it was still with me.
Yeah, wow. I mean, that's a lot to carry. I mean, so much to put on a student, too. So, well, I think now you are taking over the questions.
I'm on number 6. Have you ever been unfairly prevented from moving into a neighborhood because the landlord or a realtor refused to sell or rent you a house or apartment?
Many times. And that has definitely happened to me when I'm in Belgium. And, I would go to apply for a place, for an apartment, and it said that it was available. But all of a sudden I get there and, oh, there's already an option on it. No, it's not available anymore. And, yeah, so that happened many, many times. And that I still carry with me, and I still, think of, okay, I'm thinking revenge, okay, but I may have to let it go. But still, that was very, very hurtful, very upsetting.
Well, actually, that happened to me in California. This was the redlining. You've heard of redlining, where they have certain neighborhoods that they won't let black people move into or buy into. That happened to me. We're trying to buy an apartment not too far from, actually, the University of California, and they just wouldn't talk to us about it or sell it to us or mention it. They kept pushing us, oh, go to this neighborhood and you can buy a place there. So, yeah, that has happened to me.
Oh, wow. Wow. See, Belgium doesn't have redlining officially, but it absolutely does. Yeah. Okay.
Number 7. Have you ever moved into a neighborhood where neighbors made life difficult for you or your family?
Yes, yes. I remember this was a long time ago because I know it's happened since then, but this is what I immediately think of. Right after that miniseries Roots came out, we lived in a white neighborhood, a predominantly white neighborhood, and we had, friends there who were white and Jewish and all, different kinds of people. But when Roots came out, many of our friends' parents told us that we couldn't come play with them anymore. We couldn't. They couldn't come. We couldn't come to their house anymore. Yeah. So. I mean, unbelievable.
Well, I haven't had that specific experience, but in trying to find an apartment when I was younger and just moved to California and trying to find an apartment, you would go there and they would say, "Oh, no, I'm sorry, the apartment has been rented," or we can't rent until the owner uh, talks to you and sees you and that type of thing. So you knew where you could rent and where you could not rent, and that was in California.
Yeah. Did neighbors ever bother you or anything once you were living in certain places?
Well, as it turns out, we lived in mostly black neighborhoods. So
Okay.
that was not an issue. Number 8, have you ever been unfairly denied a bank loan?
No. Uh, no. Wait a second. No, I'm still gonna have to go with no. But I do see that how easy it is for many other people, non-black people, to get bank loans. And I have no problem with that, but I have seen how difficult it has been for Black people to get loans. Personally, I haven't had that problem, but I have seen my other friends having that problem, and I've seen how smooth and easy and seamless it is for white people to get loans.
Yeah, I think that's right. I've not had that specific experience like that where they stamp denied on it or anything like that. But what they do is they say, well, you're young, you're just, getting out in the workplace and all of that. So you should, take some time to season yourself before you apply for a loan. So they have all kinds of ways of doing
Doing
it.
it,
Yeah,
yeah.
right,
Oh wow.
right.
Mm-hmm.
So, number 9, have you ever received service from someone, such as a plumber or a car mechanic, that was worse than what other people get?
Uh, probably, probably. But I have to say, the thing that really stuck out with me was how they treat me. They try to skip me in the line, or they never really look at me, or they, they get snippy, or they, they say things that are just offensive, or, yeah, or pushy, or demeaning. So I have experienced that.
Yeah, I've had that, particularly with car mechanics. They
Oh
seem to
yeah.
find many more problems than you really have. You take your car in for an oil change or something like that, or a check. One
Mm-hmm.
of those
Mm-hmm.
quality checks and all of that. And then they say, "Oh no, you need this and you need that and you need that." And by the time the bill comes up, to several $100s, when you went there for a $50 item, yeah, I've had that experience.
Well, okay, so those are the 9 questions, and these will be up on the website, so you don't have to remember them. You don't have to, if you didn't do it with us, that's fine. You can find them on the website. But I think we see how a lot of the information is not so much in our answers, but it's in the questions.
I think that's true. And uh, as you score this for yourself, remember high scores are linked to an increased risk of poor health and well being.
Yes, yes, important. Yeah. Right, and I know that you were also, and Dr. Williams was mentioning too, and some of our other guests, different coping mechanisms. Can we just run through a few of those because we can't just leave people hanging here,
Yeah, yeah,
So
there are many coping mechanisms, but just to name a few, talk about this experience with others. You'll find people have had similar experiences. It's not that it makes it right, but it calms down. I think some of that racial that tension,
yes,
and that other people. It's not just you. It's other people, and then you get to recognize it as racism. It's not about Mel. It's not about Robin. It's racism.
yes. Right, and I have to admit, yeah, talking about these things has actually helped to, when I'm looking back at it, yeah, I'm getting upset, but I also feel a lot less stress, a lot less anger about it.
That's a very interesting experience, because that's what it's designed to do when you talk about your experience with others. Another is get involved in social activism. What do you think about that?
I love that. I mean, that just feels very empowering to me. And I mean, one thing I like to do is um, I wear shirts. I actually do a lot of social activism on Instagram and on Facebook. So so go to I'm a Robin L. You can see some of my work there, and I write about it. And actually, I would say too, this podcast is a form of social activism too.
I agree with that. So another thing is have a strong sense of racial identity. Know who you are. What do you think of that
Yes.
one?
Yes, very, very important, and something that has really been stripped from us. And I see it coming back now that we're reclaiming a lot of our culture and the pride in our culture and the pride in our blackness too, and coming together as a community. And to me, when I start learning more about my culture, I feel so empowered, and yeah, I don't feel like a victim anymore. I feel very empowered. So.
Yeah, you would be surprised at how many things that we rely on and we see every day were actually invented by black people, like the
Yes.
the yellow caution light on a traffic light, invented by a black person. The
That's right,
blood
Garrett
test,
Morgan.
yeah,
Yes,
blood
right.
test, a black person. But anyway, what about leaning on friends and family? I particularly like that one. That's something that we can do and will do, and we do all the time. But let's let them know how we feel about things.
I totally agree with you on that one. And our community, we got to lean in, and we got to let them lean on us too. So because we're all in this together, we truly are, and that's where our strength comes from, and our source, and our love, and we just should not be going through this alone anymore.
I think that's true. I think that's very, very important. The black community has always been a source of power, a source of comfort, a source of whatever we need. We give to each other. So let's continue to do that. And I'm sure that you can think of many, many more coping mechanisms that we haven't even mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, one that I always go back to, you guys probably say, oh, she's going to bring it up. I know she is. Yes, my journaling. Yeah, journaling for me, writing things down, helps to slow down my thoughts, to go deeper with what I'm feeling, and to, in a way, release it. So for me, journaling and meditation and exercise and walking and spending time in nature, those things all really, really help me to reduce stress and to gain perspective. Do you have one that's one of your personal favorites, Mel?
Uh, well, I guess one of my favorite, actually my favorite, actually is just talking to people and talking about these issues and what I've experienced. That and reading, reading
Oh,
about it,
yes.
empowering myself with what I can learn about our culture, our history, our ancestors, and that's how I cope.
Oh, that's beautiful. That is just beautiful. And I gotta say, fam, my community, beautiful souls, you've been so courageous to stay here with me, but I have finished my espresso. And so I think it's time to wind this down. But I really want to say Asante Sana for being here today, for taking this test if you chose to do that. And as I said, it is on the website, so take it whenever you like. You can come back to it anytime. And Asante Sana to Mel for being here and having an espresso with me and sharing your experiences.
Remember, your health is important.
Absolutely. Your mental, physical, spiritual health, all important.
So don't let racism make you sick. There are coping mechanisms. Use them.
And thank you, Asante Sana, to Dr. David R. Williams for his fantastic TED Talk and for creating this everyday discrimination scale so we can quantify how we are feeling. Some of us need that kind of validation, and I know I need it. And as I said, it's not so much in the answers for me as it is in the questions. So thank you so much to Dr. Williams. We're not done with this yet. For today, we are. But we still have 2 more parts of the everyday discrimination scale, and in our next episode, we're going to go delve and dive deep into the next part. So stay tuned. Thank you very much for being here, and remember, strength, soul, and reparations.
Bye, y'all.